Thank you so much, sir. Yes, I hope so. My voice is audible to all. Okay. Just let me use my share my screen. Uh, yes, you can see my screen now. Just a second. Now you can see my screen. Okay. Okay. So now you can see the slide. Okay, okay, okay. So, very good evening to all, and I would like to express my gestures to all India Homeopathic Students and Youth Association, their team members. Special thanks to Dr. Lavanya Sai. As a colleague, she has always been helping in promoting such activities, and definitely Dr. Kingshong Goswami sir, the National General Secretary of the AIHSAY. So, before proceeding for this session, this is one of the pivotal part of discussion wherein the act, or you can say the process of bias, comes into the picture when you try to understand the data which is collected in the research, or you can say when you try to understand any particular clinical disease on the perspective of different sample sizes. So, this is the intro about myself. I have been working on this particular project from past 1 or 2 years, especially when after the Lancet publication, wherein it had shown that the homeopathic medicines are nothing more than the placebo. So, initially, when such you can say news which comes into the picture, uh, internally it feels a lot of validation and reliability, and to accept those thoughts and the processes, because towards our homeopathic journey we all are learning various principles, their aspects, understanding the disease, their treatment line, and then trying to give our best for the patients for their treatment purpose. But unfortunately, if we will try to understand, the portraying of homeopathic medicines in this particular universe has been more about a catastrophe. In 2010, when I came into the homeopathic field, I was first analyzing the basic concepts, as I was not too much into the research, wherein fresh graduates, if you will try to understand, the sweet peels were particularly propagating over the sessions. But it has been a long of time. When I came into my post graduations, I came up with research methodology chapters, and wherein some of the sessions in my academic curriculum had explained about the facts about how the homeopathic medicines are getting portrayed in the publication. So before proceeding with today's, you can say, about the discussion, or you can say my introspective vision about this particular title of the study, I would like to start with our Hahnemann's organon of medicine, the sixth aphorism, which clearly states about the unprejudiced observer. I'm sure you all might be knowing about these facts, about the interpretation of these aphorisms, and definitely about analyzing those particular perspectives in your treatment line. But when we try to look on a very broader perspective, these things are little bit, you can say, comes into the picture of falsies, or you can say which comes into the picture of when you have to justify your evidences. So, in a research, bias refers to any systematic error that results in an incorrect or unfair representation of the data, affecting the validity and reliability of the findings. So, before proceeding with this session, I would be first introducing to you all about how many types of research biases are present. So, if you will see, we have selection bias, confirmation bias, publication bias, measurement bias, also known as information bias, observer bias, recall bias, attrition bias, sampling bias, Hawthornic effect, survivorship bias, social desirability bias, and funding bias. Now, these are some of the popular and which have been commonly observed by various researchers. While there are still more subdivisions of this bias. In depends on the conduct and how the process of research, particular parties look into it. Now, let's understand now first, that is the selection bias. So, what is selection bias? Definition is occurs when the sample selected is not representative of the population being studied. So we can understand with an example that conducting a study on job satisfaction, but wherein we are only including employees which are high performing companies. Okay. So definitely the outcome will always show the positive impact because we have considered our prejudice, or you can say the particular samples only which we want to study. Okay. So here we are not so rational enough to consider about an overall sample. So next is confirmation bias. Definition: the tendency to search for, interpret, or recall information in a way that confirms one's preconceptions or hypotheses. So example is a researcher may focus only on data that supports their hypothesis, ignoring data that contradicts it. So again, this is you can say wherein a self-aware researchers want to portray their own hypothesis and they are about to prove only their own hypothetical methods. So they are not conforming, or they are, you can say they are not using the other methods also, or analyzing all the data and portraying their own hypothesis. The third is publication bias. This is frequently seen in this field also, and even in various fields. Okay, so in medical science also it is seen, even in you can say in other allied sciences it is seen. So the tendency to publish only positive or significant results, leading to a skewed representation of research findings. Now, what an example of publication bias is? Studies with negative or non-significant results are less likely to be published. So definitely authors or researchers, they would like to portray those effects wherein they have been focused on those hypothetical methods wherein they want to show the positive findings. If you will try to understand in the field of research, the more you will be rational enough to give your outcomes, I think so the more the humanity will progress. Because if you are trying to give false likelihood ratios, or you can say for true negative, or you can say towards false positive results, it will definitely impact the outcomes of the studies. Then comes up the measurement bias, which is also information bias. So it occurs when the methods used to collect data are flawed, leading to inaccurate results. So example is using a poorly calibrated instrument to measure blood pressure can result in consistently higher or lower readings. So information also depends upon how much you are using the instruments or tools. Now here it is given an example of the sphygmomanometer. But in research field, if you try to understand, the questionnaire might be a pattern of understanding to getting the information. Like many of us, we try to go to see the survey questionnaires. We go into the public. We need to understand the responses about their particular attribution, or you can say their affection towards this line of treatment. So there are three domains: cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So wherein when you try to go with the survey projects, you need to understand the responses based on all three domains, and then you can bring up a good policy if you want to work forward with the humanities. Okay. Then comes up the observer bias, the tendency for researchers or observers to see what they expect to see, or to be influenced by their subjective interpretations. Like an example, we have in an experiment, a researcher might unconsciously rate behaviors differently depending on which group the participant belongs to. So observer itself explains in the word that it will always depend on the perception of that researchers. Now it is very hard to convey or to see the perception in a rational mind. When I say rational mind, I mean to say in both the sides of the coins. It is not only that I have to see only one particular part. Like in drug proving, if you try to understand, we go in a sequence of proving symptoms, then we try to reconfirm those, and that is how the repertory or the other facts have been come up, means in the italic format, or you can say in the bold format. So which are reconfirmed rubrics, they are coming into the bold formats, which are singly confirmed in first drug proving, and which has been not been re-verified in the clinical trials, they have come into the italics and all. So these are the general, you can say, understanding what we have gone through it. But in this particular preparation, we also need to understand that the observer bias might be a key factor, playing into it, into the picture. Then the next is recall bias. Occurs when participants do not remember past events accurately, leading to skewed data. So here we have an example that in a retrospective study on diet and disease, participants may not accurately recall what they ate years ago. So it is like the previous incidences of the symptoms, even in a proving or might be in trials, there might be a possibility that the particular participant wouldn't be able to, reprocate all those particular things what have been observed after taking the medicine. So this also matters when you're trying to giving a line of treatment or whenever you're documenting any case report. The total, we say the totality of symptoms, but it is very difficult to gather all the things and to bring into the nutshell and then to provide those particular publications to the society to prove that these medicines have the effects or there are any other effects than those particularly provided within the books. Then the seventh is attrition bias. Happens when participants drop out of a study over time, leading to a non-representative sample. So here we have an example that in a long-term study on weight loss, those who do not lose weight might be more likely to drop out, skipping the results. So yes, attribution bias can occur in the inclusion criteria sometimes, or even in your exclusion criteria of designing the clinical trials. So we need to understand whenever we are designing a randomized control trial, wherein the sampling is totally randomly decided, the overall, inclusion of that particular participant throughout the trial needs to be predetermined before taking that consent, and definitely the withdrawal policy also. So this plays a major role too. Then we have the sampling bias, a specific type of selection bias where the sample is not randomly selected, leading to a non-representative sample. So again, if we can understand the sampling bias and the observer bias, somewhere you can have this particular shuffle in more or the other provings. Example, that conducting an online survey that only includes people with internet access, which may exclude certain demographics. Now it's like that in a particular continent, if there are no frequencies of the Wi-Fi's, then definitely those particular continent people will not get the updates of what is happening in this particular medical field. So it also matters that how the information is proceeding within the community and what is exactly being portraying. That is very important. Like field in homeopathy, it is very important. Then we have Hawthorne's effect, the alteration of behavior by the subject of a study due to their awareness of being observed. So it's like if someone is observing me, then definitely the parameters might change because of my particular perception over that particular study. Like an example, where workers might increase their productivity temporarily simply because they know they are being studied. So this also matters a lot. That is why in this particular, to avoid those Hawthorne effects, we usually go with the blinding studies, which confirms that there is no any interconnection or interpersonal, having communication about this particular things. Then we have survivorship bias, wherein the logical error of concentrating on the people or things that survive some process and overlooking those that did not because they are not visible. Like an example, we have analyzing successful companies to determine business strategies without considering companies that fail using the same strategies. So usually these biases come over the time in the manufacturing units or in the production, wherein many of the small scale industries, when they are trying to raise their funds for bringing up a new product launch, like in homeopathy, we have new products coming into the market. We have some of the nosodes which have currently been discovered. Like in COVID-19, I think so you all must be aware that many of the researchers have made those COVID-19 nosodes. Malarial nosodes have been portrayed initially. So it also matters about its particular marketing strategies also, and what all efficacy or the effect points are you trying to portray in this particular products. Then comes the social desirability bias, the tendency of respondents to answer questions in a manner that will be viewed favorably by others. So it's like in a survey on a drug use, participants might underreport their usage due to the stigma associated with it. So this also matters, how you try to market the drug, the advertisement policies also. And the last is the funding bias. You might have observed in various research papers, after this section of acknowledgement, there is a section of funding. So wherein the researchers have to explain whether the particular study was funded by any organizations or whether it was in a in a MOU signed between the other organizations, and what all the researchers have been, got credentials about the work strategy, the workplace, the data, and how all they have collected and all. So the tendency for the outcomes of research to align with the interest of the funding organization. So research funded by a pharmaceutical company might report more favorable results for that company's drugs. Now understand, after going through all these biases, towards my next slide, you all need to understand the social media coverage of homeopathy. So now I would be trying to give you some real-time data and some retrospective data of what have been homeopathy been portrayed. So the first I would like to give you the data of Southern Goa Mental Health Center, wherein in the year 2022, it has given a headline, research supporting homeopathy is often biased, of poor quality review. Okay, so now we will just understand the protocol of write-up of all these particular institutions about portraying the homeopathic science. Then we have here two studies. One is Ars Techna, which explains the reporting bias makes homeopathy trials look like homeopathy works. Then we have another research paper from Lancet. Please understand, Lancet is a journal in the year 1997, 1998, 2000, 2005, 2008. These all years Lancet have been dominating homeopathy, wherein they are portraying that these are completely a placebo and miraculously they have the results. So why are these particular researchers trying to understand homeopathy based on those points wherein the placebo is been shown as a portraying part? We need to understand this on a serious note. Okay. So here we can see that in this particular paper they have written that yes to pluralistic health system, but no to homeopathy. So in today's I think so recently in previous months, the Ministry of AYUSH and all the other health organizations, they have explained that integrated approach will be the approach for the upcoming policies. And when the approach of the government is integrated, and if you get such research papers which are against the, not again, but you can say it's avoiding the circumstances of getting the homeopathy the choice of the option for the community, it brings little bit a question mark for the particular journal also. Then we have another journal, bias and misleading concepts in an Arnica research study, comments to improve experimental homeopathy. So in this particular research, they have explained the ongoing and the previous researches which has been conducted with the Arnica montana with different potencies. So the research paper explains more about the models which were used, understanding the alcohol percentage concentrations, then their activity, comparing with the control group, understanding the duration, the bioavailability, and so many factors, Then we have Royal Veterinary College, University of London, wherein they have written that RVC experts show homeopathy only appears to work because of perceptual errors. So can you understand, means the first heading we get to understand is it is a placebo, then we come to understand it's a perceptual errors. So the perception of the information what a homeopath gains, it's more about his understanding which he or she is not able to portray in the patients. So the results are narrated as based on the placebo effects. Now this is one of the pivotal paper in the year 1882. Means actually we were searching a lot of data about how this particular biases happens. So we were trying to connect those timelines over the time to understand that how these particular researchers have come up with this idea. So we understood that the epicenter, wherein you can see the root cause of the paper, starts from here. It's in the year 1882, wherein it explained the falses of homeopathy. The North American Review, this particular source, has been written by A.B. Palmer and those authors. And I really appreciate, because why I appreciate is the write-up right now seems to be completely qualitative. There is no any particular trial involved into it. So if you will understand, the trial result is coming up in the year of 2000 somewhere on above, wherein below 2000 there were no any results oriented, completely qualitative database. So this brings again a question for all those readers and those researchers who are trying to portray homeopathy based on the falsies. Then we have McGill University explaining that homeopathy delusion through dilution. So it's a false belief against the dilution, what they are trying to convey, and they are trying to portray the most popular manufacturing company Boiron and its product, that is oxycocogninum. You can understand this has been given as the remedy for the colds and flu. Now we come towards a little bit or more, you can say, advance about the biases. See, these all research papers, they have been published. Okay, the important part is what we need to understand from these papers. Now, if we will try to understand the paper as mentioned by the researchers, then definitely we need to retrospectively check whether we have understood homeopathy correctly or not. Because in papers like this, wherein liver injury, the therapeutic dilemma of homeopathy, a case report, it explains about that the homeopathic medicines shows the liver injury. It shows the changes in this particular cannuli of the hepatocytes. Then we have another paper, this is from India, which is currently been booming and a topic of, you can say, on a vigilance part. A series of homeopathic remedies related severe drug-induced liver injury from South India. So they have portrayed that in the times of COVID, the arsenic album which was given frequently, the excess dosage of the arsenic album has created the injury in the liver and the changes in the parameters. And they have portrayed all the case reports and the documentation part. Then again, this is another one. Dangerous placebo during the COVID-19 pandemic, a series of homeopathic arsenic album induced liver injury. So Curious is one of the, you can say, a dialogue medical, you can say, a blog or a journal, which provides all the data about the allied sciences, and they are fictional, you can say, efficacies and to be portrayed into the base of the effectiveness. Then again we have the Lancet, as I told you that this is somewhere in the year 2005, that are the clinical effects of homeopathy placebo effects. So you can understand that these questions have come up from the year of 1882. These were not rampantly developed in the year of 2005. They have been prolongedly going with the rigorous process. They were understanding, all the scientific community were understanding how to, portray a medical science which is currently booming in the pandemics. Like we all know, we have learned in the history, the cholera epidemics and all, which has been written in the particular organon of the books, even in some of the other community medicine books too. This is another paper which is in 1997, as I told you. Are the clinical effects of homeopathy placebo effects or meta-analysis of placebo controlled trials? Then homeopathy a helpful placebo or an unethical intervention? So you can understand the title, what are they trying to portray, whether it is a helpful placebo or an unethical intervention. They are not even writing that homeopathy is a medical science. They are directly portraying within the placebo or an unethical intervention. And you all must be known this particular researcher, that is Edzard Ernest, because he is one of those researchers who is most of orthodox and who try to portray those things which he feels which are against the evidence-based medicines. The criteria which is going against the evidence-based of medicines and stricter criteria that is particularly dominating the allopathic domains. He tried to portray all these particular allied fields into it, which brings up a question that whether such appointment, you can say such opinions of researchers need to be considered or not. Then we have again the Smithsonian magazine. So this is again, these are 1800 studies later scientists conclude homeopathy doesn't work. So if it says like this, then why are those 1800 studies conducted? This brings a question, why are these people writing such contents which is making confusion towards the newer generation homeopaths and towards the generation of homeopaths who are trying to build up their research career. Now, after understanding so much of, these are all selected, you can say, wherein I have gone with some of the confirmation or selected biases over this procedure. Let us understand, after going through this, what our homeopathic community was doing within this period. So we have the homeopathic defense. People have written an article against it, the Australian report of homeopathy, wherein they have explained the criteria of the selection of the diseases were pre-clearly biased and which has impacted about the outcomes. So you can go through this particular articles wherein they have written, and Dana Ullman has been the one of the most prior part of the homeopaths who have been writing. So even you can see this is another article. This is the article which has been corresponding to the article of liver injury. So the people from CCRs, they have explained that the article definitely lacks in writing all about the casual assessment methods, and they have explained about the observation related to the RUCM and all those particular, the case reporting, how they have been documented. So You can all go through this. These are freely available in towards the internet, the Google Scholar, or you can say in the PubMed databases. And they have mentioned about the observations too in the GC and MS analysis also, about how this particular paper has been, you can say fabricated. Means I would like to use the word falsies. When they are using falsies in homeopathy, I think so they are using falsies on their own part of writing the papers. Then comes up the efficacy of homeopathic treatment, systematic reviews of meta-analysis of randomized placebo control homeopathy trials for any indication. So these are the positive effects. Not only positive, they are considering all the effects. Individualized homeopathy, patented homeopathy, then non-individualized homeopathy you can say, and a combination wherein again the veterinar, the in vitro, the in vivo, all the aspects they have been considering, and they are trying to portray that yes, there is effects. It is not like that the people are just trying to portray about their own thoughts. This is another article which was retracted. Is homeopathy effective for attention deficit and hyperactive disorders? A meta-analysis. So why was this paper retracted? I would like to say is that the reason they have given over this particular part is the risk of bias understanding of this research paper was not so refined as per the general policy. So this again brings a question, like I have explained you, the publication bias, how it happens. Then comes up the Wittelsbach's paper, which is most important, and we all should admire this paper. Why? Because serious mistakes in meta-analysis of homeopathic research. Now let me explain you what exactly is meta-analysis, because from past 3 or 4 slides I am trying to explain you about the meta-analysis. See, meta-analysis are the clinical trials which are gathered, collected on a particular condition, and then we try to overlook all the outcomes. Means for example, if we have, you can say, flu. So all the clinical trials which have been conducted on flu within the homeopathic medicines, those will be considered. So at a time we get a larger sample size. So if we try to consider a one trial which is showing 1000 sample size, another trial showing 500 sample size, and similarly like this we have 10 samples. So almost we have a data of 10,000 samples. Now if we try to use a correct interpretation of the funnel plot, or you can say the risk of bias and the forest plot, then we will be able to understand these meta-analysis studies, that whether it is favoring the control group or it is favoring the treatment line of. So Wittelsbach sir is trying to explain that in homeopathy usually meta-analysis are very difficult to consider, because we go through the individualized methods, and the evidence-based criteria wherein the meta-analysis is used as a top priority, they consider the non-individualized, or you can say single medicine, to be reported. Like homeopathy practice depends totally on the individualization principle. So people are having the difficulties in writing those particular papers, and that is why they try to bring so much of data and they try to portray as a placebo, because they are not considering the whole, or you can say the whole sample size of this particular data. Now let us understand the decades of research in homeopathy, means past 10 years, what has been happened and what we all need to go ahead of the time. The Homeopathic Research Institute, we all know, the HRA in the UK, so it concluded and it has written a good report. Means this is actually not in open access, but we had taken this particular data from the Thymin journal's link, and wherein we have written into it. So it has mentioned that in 2013 in Barcelona, the main focus was establishing the legitimacy of homeopathic research, aim claims of no evidence and placebo effects. In 2015, it was to improve the evidence, including a pivotal meta-analysis demonstrating that individualized homeopathy could show significant effects beyond placebo. So if you will understand, the HRA has taken a strategy. So they were trying to provide all the evidences towards the falsies which were portrayed by all the other researchers. So like I have shown you so many of research papers and blogs, wherein homeopathy is portraying towards completely a false science. These particular researchers, they are dedicatively, trying to build up all the evidences as per their own consciousness, and plus they are including various other research groups too. 2007 in Malta, they have explained about the emphasized learning from past research to enhance future studies. Then in 19, highlighted the strong evidences against the placebo only hypothesis. Like we all know, in COVID, it was 2020 online, the LMHI was conducted, and wherein despite the limitation of the virtual meetings, the positive impacts were discovered. You all must be knowing that the medicine arsenic album was discovered based on the clinical characteristics of Indian population.
So wherein the Bayesian approach and the epidemiological studies were done on the clinical basis, which were further converted into the rubrics and then were considered for the treatment line. Then we have in 2013, in 2023 in London conference, which showed the fundamental research exploring the modes of action of homeopathic medicines. Despite progress, debates continue still that some conventional scientists rejecting homeopathic validity, and further on, like those studies of the Sigurdson and et al., which showed the positive effects. Now, understand, there will be a time wherein some people will definitely reject because their teaching and their understanding has been from the reductionist perspective point. Like in homeopathy, if we try to understand, we have been taught to be unprejudiced. That is why we try to accept all the things. We are not rejecting anyone. We are open with all the resources, with all the line of treatment, and we try to understand what rational approach or a rational treatment can be given to the patient at that time of point of view. Even we have limitations. Even our Drug and Medical Remedies Act provide the data wherein 53 such diseases we cannot comment that we have the line of treatment to use as a curative. That is why we use that we can treat it. Okay, and that is why the aphorism says the highest mission is to treat and to cure the particular sick person. So it is anticipated that in 2025 conference, the HIA might expect the more cutting edge research providing the detailed mechanism of action. Might be some gene expression studies, or you can say the docking studies might come up, but still this is a point of research time. Now, the main important agenda of today's session is, after understanding so much of bias, how can we counteract? Because see, when we are living this universe, these information, even in today, after 10 years, they will always be reciprocated from various other methods. In today's scenario, we can say Instagram channels, reels, they are portraying such things. So we also need to get educated, and we also need to understand how we can counteract those biases. So I have some strategies which have been designed and which have been taken from various research papers and which has been referenced. So designing rigorous studies is one of the important parts. So whenever you are trying to conduct any research in the homeopathic field, your clinical trial design must be rigorously studied. It must have fulfillment of all the criteria as mentioned by the good clinical practice. You can say GCP or the international harmonization of the council, wherein comparing all the guidelines. Might be you are doing a proving of any new drug, or you are preparing an in vitro studies, in vivo studies, the percentage of alcohol and control group, everything that has to be rigorously followed. Use well designed randomized control trials where possible. Please understand, if it is possible, then only go with it. Otherwise, we will waste our funds, our energy, our time, and at the end of the study, the outcome might be not so good enough. Then blinding, implement double blinding procedures where neither the participants nor the researchers know which treatment is being administered. Like I've told you, in observer bias, you can use this particular concept to avoid, because if we try to know that some of the physicians, they know our internal perspectives, our weaknesses and all, the line of treatment might change. There might be a definitely perception which might change the effects. Then we have sample size. Ensure that we have a large sample size, because definitely a small case study result will be not so common when we try to compare on the larger size. So the studies do matter, because the results of the small scale cannot be replicated similar when we try to go on a diverse population. Please understand this. Then pre-registration, so the study protocol and analysis plan in the public registry. So whenever you are doing any clinical trial, or even if you are writing any case report, you should follow the guidelines. In India, we have Clinical Trial Registry of India, CTRI. So anyone who is trying to do any particular clinical research, first they should take a ethical approval from the committee which has been registered in the CITESCO, and then they need to upload in the CTRI. This is one of the most important thing and a crucial thing, so that the world will know that yes, you are trying to do this trial and you have those particular hypotheses, outcomes, inclusion, exclusion, the point of dosage, how are you going, route of administration, how long are you going to see, the assessment points, and everything intact with it. Then we have use of objective measures. Rely on objective quantifiable outcomes measures rather than subjective assessment where possible. This helps reduce personal biases in interpreting results. Definitely go for a quantifiable objectives. Like I have explained you that in the year 1882, the paper which explained the falsehoods of homeopathy, this is so much of qualitative statements. Like if we will try to understand the materia medica, William Borix, in the preface of the William Borix, it is clearly mentioned that these are the clinical suggestions. Even William Borix is using these comments. So we should be very alert when we are trying to read the materia medica and when you're trying to give the medicine based on those particular, you can say, statements, because these are all patient responses statements. So over the time we need to verify whether these particular statements are from those same medicine or are they changing over the time. Then we have statistical analysis. Definitely you should be well aware about what tests need to be interpreted in the results, because that will definitely show all the process about the outcomes. Then peer review. Peer review is very important. I feel that homeopathy is not a placebo, but like my thought process, are others also well aware about that? So this is one of the important thing, peer review. So before doing a peer review, you should have a complete collection of the data and you should have a complete understanding of what you want to portray in this particular outcomes of this research, or you can say the hypothesis. The replication is one of the important findings. Like if we understand, Hahnemann sir has done proving of various drugs in the year, you can say, 17th and 18th century. In the 20th century, we need to verify those things, whether those are still available or not. So these are the replication of the symptoms, of the remedy, the potencies, the analyses, and all the rubric, gradation and all, everything. Then conflict of interest need to be disclosed, definitely, because within the researchers there might be a conflict that has to come into the picture. If it is not done, it has to be stated that there is no any conflict of interest. So this gives us the perception of the researchers more transparent enough. And the last is the transparency, that there should be full transparency while reporting the research. Now understand, before concluding my session, this all data, I too had a limitation. So I have mentioned that selection bias might be present as per source information and display based on the open access or free available of the data. There are a lot of data right now. I have it, but due to the, it can engage the PPT more within the 80 or 90 slides. But what I want to highlight in today's session and to all of you is that we will get such data in different manners, in different persons portraying different countries, different perceptions. Over the time, we all need to understand how we all need to counter those biases, and we all need to develop the habit of writing the research papers wherein we are trying to portray the transparency of homeopathy more towards the community. This is the only solution, what I feel, that which will bring a rational approach towards all the communities, you can say all the allied sciences, even the other science people will also claim that these are the methods, and the people, they even know about what they are writing into it. In today's generation, we can see there are various predatory journals. Within 2 days, they try to publish the articles, and they try to portray whatever. You give them a money of 10, 15,000, they will publish a paper. That's it. It is so fast. But we need to understand that is this particular paper with the content, how much rational approaches have been mentioned, or which has been manipulated or fabricated, or even if it is real, how much true it has been within the statements with when the hypothesis was confirmed or when the outcomes were replicated. So in today's session, I would thank you all for this patient listening and towards this particularly conducting with the biases. For more information, you all can scan this particular QR code, when you will get the information of our particular tech home research solutions. We try to provide the data, the analysis, and definitely we have so much of collaborations. We are building up more collaborations ahead, and we want to bring the community for homeopathy in the pivotal part to be completely unbiased and rational towards the upcoming generation and all. So towards the completion of the project, I'm thankful for the volunteers who have been very patiently listening towards me. Just a second, I will just close my screen. Okay, so I'm done with it. I hope so. The session was a little bit of interactive, wherein because lot of points have been explained, and because some of the things towards my side, because it was an interface wherein I was speaking within myself. So I would be a little bit more appreciated if I get so much of communication with from other people's too.
Okay, okay, sir. Okay, sir, I got your question. So, from my experience, as I was working as a senior research fellow in the Regional Institute of Research under the CCRH in Mumbai. So, I was posted in Taluka of the Kalwan, which is in the Nashik district. In that particular district, I was appointed as the SRF, and wherein we were given OPD. So, in the peripheral settings, what you all can do is you can gather the data of the incidences and prevalence of the cases which are currently being reported in the particular PHCs. Based on those particular data, you can write a particular expression of interest, which is known as EOI, which is there in the CCRH and the documentation, wherein you can portray about the current findings of the incidence and prevalence, and then you can portray a model of how you are going to plan your research study to conduct about the trials and all. Over the time, when the government gives the appreciation within the EOI, they will try to communicate with you, and then there will be a MOU wherein a lot of things will be discussed about the liabilities, the outcomes, the fundings, and deputing the other officers and all. And after doing all this process, you will be able to understand the outcome of the studies within the trials when you will continuously go within it. So this is one of the approach. Another approach is that you can collaborate with other colleges wherein the MOU has already been in the process, not only of CCRH, but there are other MOUs done within the DST grants also, DPT grants also. But the POC, proof of concept, should be very well aware. The POC is important to take a grant, understand, because POC depends upon your prototype and your initial findings. So tomorrow, if I want to study a particular individualized methods, let's say let's consider the mpox, which is currently been going into Gujarat and all states. So I should have an understanding that how much is the incidence and prevalence of the mpox and their resistance within the other line of treatment, what is their growth period, the growth curve, and how long it can change the pattern of the progressiveness of the disease. So this totally depends upon the conditions, the geographical area, what you need to do, and your perspectives about how prolong you want to extend the MOU. The study might go for 5 years, 10 years, but the important thing is that what outcome are you going to bring out from the study? Please understand this. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yes, yes. I totally agree on this point. अभी यहाँ पे मेरे थोड़े से comments might be little bit of, हाँ हाँ, yeah, please communicate. Yes, 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 sir. Definitely, definitely, sir. Definitely. Yes, sir. I would appreciate कि आप जो efforts ले रहे हो because it is yes, yes, yes. नो बट इट इज ये एक्चुअली ये सोच आना भी एक इम्पोर्टेंट चीज है ना. ये सोच आना, इसको इम्प्लीमेंट करना, एग्जीक्यूट करना, दिस ऑल्सो इम्पोर्टेंट थिंग. बहुत जो रिसर्चर्स है आज के, हम बड़ी जनरेशन देखते हैं होम्योपैथ्स, दे वांट वेरी फास्ट, एवरीथिंग. देयर इज नो एनी पेशेंस, मतलब एक टाइम था जहां पे थिंग्स वर अबाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग द प्रोसेस. राइट नाउ वी आर ऑल इन अ रिजल्ट ओरिएंटेड वर्ल्ड. सो व्हाट हैपेंस कि जब आप रिजल्ट ओरिएंटेड वर्ल्ड में जाते हो, जैसे कि आपने बोला कि जॉब अवेयरनेस हो, उसके बाद बहुत सारे गवर्नमेंट के प्रोजेक्ट्स हो, या फिर जो आपके पास डेटा है, तो सीसीआर इसके ऊपर काम भी कर रहा है. क्लिनिकल केस रिपोजिटरी आप गूगल पे जाके जब डालोगे सीसीआरएच का, तो उसमें आपको मिलेगा कि अगर आपके पास डेटा है, अगर आप ट्रीट कर रहे हो केसेस को, you can give your data to the government, and what the government will do, they will try to collect all those data, and then they will give you the particular, you can they will give the publications, और वो हाईलाइट करेंगे आप कि आप क्या क्या काम कैसे कर रहे हो वगैरह. एंड आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड, मतलब पीयर प्रेशर सभी के ऊपर है, बट ओवर द टाइम वी ऑल नीड टू थिंक कलेक्टिवली कि हमें आगे जाके होम्योपैथी को कैसे बढ़ाना है. मीन्स हाउ रैशनली वी कैन यू गिव अ पर्टिकुलर साइंस द जस्टिस. बहुत बार होता है कि हम ट्रीट करते हैं पेशेंट, बट जो डेटा हमारे पास होता है वो बहुत बार कभी मिसलिंक्ड हो जाता है, या ओवर द टाइम अगर क्राउडेड पेशेंट ग्रुप है तो हम इतना टाइम नहीं है हमारे पास कि हम वो डेटा को ले, ऑब्जर्व करें, लिखे अलग से, उसके बाद अलग से हम उसको मेमोराइज करके पूरा केस रिपोर्टिंग में लिखे. गाइडलाइंस बोलते हैं कि केस रिपोर्टिंग गाइडलाइंस आप मेंशन करके आप लिख सकते हो, बट ये बहुत मैटर करता है कि आपके पास टाइम कितना है. इट मैटर्स अबाउट योर इंटरेस्ट ऑल्सो. डेटा सभी के पास है, बट द मेन पॉइंट इज दैट दैट इज इन अ ग्रे डेटा. ग्रे डेटा मतलब कि अभी तक वो बाहर आया नहीं है. सो ये बाहर कब आएगा? व्हेन वी विल ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड द प्रोसेस ऑफ हाउ यू कैन गो फॉर द पब्लिकेशन अहेड एंड ऑन. यस, करेक्ट. सही बोल रहे हो. डेफिनेटली, डेफिनेटली. यस, यस. ओके. करेक्ट, 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 करेक्ट. आई यस, यस सर. आई टोटली अप्रिशिएट सर, जो टीम, मतलब ऑल इंडिया होम्योपैथिक स्टूडेंट्स एंड यूथ एसोसिएशन जो कर रहे हैं, आपकी एफर्ट्स जो है, बिकॉज आई कैन सेंस इट. एंड इवन आई वुड लाइक टू बी अ पार्ट ऑफ इट, बिकॉज बहुत सारे, देयर आर लॉट ऑफ कलीग्स ऑफ माइन ऑल्सो, दे ऑल्सो वांट टू गो फॉर प्रेजेंटेशन. उनको बताना है कि उनके पास केसेस है, दे हैव शोन द इफेक्ट्स, and this is a right, I think so this is a right portal or a platform wherein we all can have a collective discussions, and wherein we can come to a conclusion, because this is the need of our sir. Yeah, yeah. Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, 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 yes. I know, sir. I know. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, 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 yes. True, sir. True, true. Yes, 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 sir. Many of them they go for a cross-pathy. डिग्री होम्योपैथी का लेंगे और एलोपैथी प्रैक्टिस करेंगे एंड ऑल सो दिस ऑल्सो मैटर्स. मैं वही बोल रहा हूँ ना कि इनर इंस्टिंक्ट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है कि हमें सोचना चाहिए कि हम एग्जैक्टली क्या कर रहे हैं एक्चुअली. बिकॉज फाइनली इट्स अ पार्ट ऑफ ब्रेड और बटर. सभी के अपने अपने रिसोर्सेज है. मतलब वी कैन नॉट कमेंट ऑन एनी वंस इमोशनल कोएंट और इंटेलेक्चुअल कोएंट. सबके अपने अपने चॉइसेस है. बट व्हाट आई थिंक कि अगर आपने किसी फील्ड में अगर आप एडमिशन भी ले रहे हो या सोच रहे हो सो मेक श्योर कि आप उसको जस्टिस दो. मतलब मेरा कहना इतना ही है. मतलब सो दैट डिपेंड्स. वो देना कैसे वो आपके ऊपर है. But you should be little bit, loyal or you can say rational towards that field. Then that field automatically will go into progression. Yes, yeah. Correct, 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 sir. Correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. True, sir. I accept this. I accept this, sir. Okay, okay. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. Good night. Good night to everyone. Thank you so much for being a patient listener. Thank you.